Hello everyone and welcome to Uisneach. Uisneach here, geographical position right in the very centre of Ireland, and hence it's known as the navel of Ireland. A mythological and spiritual centre. Yes, we've got Cashel, we've got Tara, but it's Uisneach that geographically is at the centre of our country. And behind me here I've got the effigy of Eiru, the ancient earth goddess Eiru. And it's from her name that we get our own name of our country, Ireland. Eiru, Eire, Erin and Ireland. And that name itself means abundance, so our country is abundant. Now, one might say this is all just mythology. It's not true. Let's talk about that for a moment. Mythology and history, they do not make easy bedfellows. But, on the other hand, where does mythology end and history begin? Can we ever say? Because surely mythology and our legends and stories have made us what we are as much as what happened to us down through history. And myths, legends, fairy tales, stories, they were all a means by which ancient peoples passed on oral traditions and taught and gave us lessons. And even though when time goes on, even though the message or the lesson is forgotten, the story is still remembered until someone else picks it up further down the line. Now, when you come in here, you know you're in a different world. That's because you are. You're on a different energy vibration level. And many people would say that's your imagination. It's not imagination. We are on a strong energy line here that joins up with the energy line coming from Slieve Gully in the north, down through the gap of the north there, that joins up with Tara and goes over through Spain, over to Stonehenge, over to Spain, over to Egypt and the pyramids. We're on that energy line here. And to say that you're in a different world here, yes you are. You're on a different energy vibration level. Now, let's talk about religion and spirituality. Religion is man-made. Religion is a belief system, a set of rules and decrees and dogmas that mould a man into a certain construct and either punish or gift him accordingly, reward him or gift him. Spirituality, on the other hand, is very different. Spirituality is an inherent knowing and connecting with the great flow of energy that our ancestors knew all about. Spirituality is the way in which each one of us individually connects with the great one universal energy we call God, and that's very different from religion. Now, these myths and stories, you can look at them on two levels. The first level is the very, very basic surface level, the ordinary story, and you can remember that. Or you can search for the meaning and the lessons and the oral traditions passed on behind that. Because these myths and stories were tales told by the ancients to encode a deeper level of knowledge. And as I said before, even if the meaning got lost, then the story will still be remembered. And to understand any of these gods or goddesses associated here with Uisneach, we've got first of all to know the story. So now we invite you to come with us on a short tour of Uisneach to unearth that story and to discover some of the legends and myths attached to here and to find out what the real message is that our ancients wanted us to get. So come with us now please, and we'll end up back here again. So let us start with the goddess Eiru and the god Lu. Eiru was the earth goddess, the triple goddess, a trinity of three distinct aspects or figures united in one being. The triple goddess in mythology is representative of the three stages in the female life cycle: the maiden, the mother and the crone. Our ancient ancestors saw Ireland and the land as the mother spirit. alive, living, breathing. And so Eiru became the triple goddess. Banba, the beautiful young maiden, and Fola. Eiru, Banba and Fola, the three sisters. Eiru awakens and comes alive as Banba at springtime when the seeds are sown. Then the beautiful young maiden becomes Eiru, the woman with child. And then during the harvest season she becomes Eiru, the mother. And so on into the cold winter season when Eiru becomes Fola, the crone, the old woman of winter, where we rest and nurture ourselves, then into spring and Banba again, and so the cycle continues. When the Milesian Celts arrived from northern Spain, the Tuatha chose the three sisters, Eiru, Banba and Fola, to negotiate on their behalf, while the Milesians had as their negotiator Amergin, their bard poet. As the conflict continued, the three sisters knew that the Milesians were much stronger, and they arranged to meet with them, and they only had one request: that their beloved land would be called after them. The Book of Invasions, Lor Gabala Erin, describes how Eiru, Banba and Fola individually met with Amergin at the top of their own particular sacred mountain. Each of them made the deal with Amergin that the country would be called after her. But it was Eiru who was chosen. Now, why Eiru and not Banba or Fola? As the story goes, it was Eiru who invited Amergin to the sacred marriage of a male king to the goddess of the land in order to usher in a time of peace and prosperity. And it was Eiru who had cursed with powerful words and magic Dawn MacMillid, one of the leaders of the Milesian invasion, after he had insulted her, and he drowned shortly afterwards. So Eiru had shown her power. She was not to be angered. And it was Eiru whose chosen sacred mound was the hill of Uisneach, the mythological and spiritual centre, the navel of the country. So it was Eiru who received the privilege of becoming the goddess of sovereignty of this island of Ireland. However, the names Banba and Fola are still sometimes used in poetry as names for Ireland. And of course the name Erin has been used down through history in countless stories and poetry, often in the form of a broken-hearted woman or a mother yearning for freedom or lamenting the loss of her children. And Eiru, Banba, Fola, Mother Earth herself, as our ancient ancestors saw it, rests here at Uisneach. So we've just left Eiru up there, and just down here we've got Lu, the god Lu. And behind me here, as you can see, we've got Loch Lu, reputed to be the place where the god Lu met his mortal end. And over there we've got the reputed burial place Carn Luddoch of the same Lu. And here we are at the King's Palace. And behind me here you can see very clearly the ancient roadway that led up to the King's Palace here. And you can just imagine this scene thousands of years ago when that roadway was packed with thousands and tens of thousands of people coming up here to Uisneach, especially at the time of the great festivity of Beltana. And again, on the top of here we have the same as we saw at Tara and we saw at Owen Mocha. We have the Lemnis Gate, the figure 8 here, the two concentric circles. And I am actually standing here in the larger of those two circles. And this is where the extended family of the king would have stayed, along with the bards and the poets. And over there, just beyond the node, is the smaller of the two circles. So that is where the king and his immediate family would have stayed for the festivities, which would have gone on for days and days. And the other people, the ordinary people, that's me and you by the way, would have stayed down there round the bottom part in our shabby tents and everything else we had. And the nobility and royalty would have been up here. So now let's go over the node into the smaller circle where the king would have stayed. And you can imagine the temporary dwellings which would have been built here. Built of reeds and rushes and probably timber. And those dwellings might have been left afterwards and rebuilt up again next year, or they might have been dismantled completely. Let's go over here and take a look at the smaller node where the king and his immediate family would have stayed. And here I am on the node, the connecting point between the two concentric circles that form the figure 8. Over here, at this side to me now, we've got the smaller of the two. And just over there, if you can see it, that's where the king would have stayed. And you can imagine temporary dwelling houses there to facilitate his stay here at the Uisneach festival. And just coming up on your screen now, we've got an artist's impression by J.G. O'Donoghue of what he thought it would have been like. And you can see exactly the festivities and the kind of activity that would have been going on, and the two circles very, very clearly. And we also have drone footage, courtesy of Uisneach, coming up on your screen now too, clearly showing the two concentric circles here. So this is the King's Palace. The two concentric circles and the lemniscate, the figure 8, the figure in which and the form in which all energy flows in all dimensions, below the ground, on the ground and above the ground. All these ancient peoples knew the power of the lemniscate, the power of the figure 8. It's here again, as you can see. We saw it on Tara, we saw it on Uisneach. And here we are again, back at the ancient roadway leading up here. And this again is the larger of the concentric circles, and over there is the smaller one. And over here to my right, let's take a look over here. We've got something very interesting over in this point. And with me here, I've got Francis Cody, very privileged to have Francis with me. And Francis is from Uisneach here, and Francis is going to tell us what this is all about.
So basically, this space here is the remains of a dwelling, and what would have appeared above it, you'd have had timber uprights. So they would have created a wall and a surrounding wall, and then you would have had a roof on top of it. And this space here would have been shared with family and animals. As animals were cash. And then across just behind me, I don't know if you can see it there, there's a gap between those two trees. That's the entrance. And away from that would have fallen another ancient road, which would have gone straight to the hill of Tara.
And while we're here, we may as well talk about the Iscar Riada. If you look over this way, you can see it very clearly in the distance. And the Iscar Riada, again, I let Francis tell us about that.
Well, basically the Iscar Riada, if you can see beyond, you've got a green field, another green field, and then a kind of a brownish type field with a copse of trees. There's a hill fort there, another ring fort there. But where that hill fort is sitting is actually sitting on the Iscar Riada. And the Iscar Riada runs from Dublin all the way across the country to Galway. And so if you can imagine walking it, you would have had everywhere just covered in trees. So as we imagine, it would have been an ancient highway. So people would have been safe up there from attackers, be them local, foreign or whatever. But also as well, what they would have been able to see are the treetops. So an animal will make a certain movement as it passes a tree. And because we were hunter-gatherers, we would have been very, very tightly, aware of our landscape. And so anyway, these guys would have come along. They'd have been walking. If they saw movement, they would have been able to make out the difference between an animal moving a tree or animals, navigating the land below them, or people. And it would have made a different sound as well. But they're up on such a height that they would have been able to see it. And the Iscar Riada was formed back in the Ice Age when it just pushed all the land up into a peak, and then as the ice froze, or rather the ice melted, we were left with this ridge that runs right the way across the country, like I said, from east to west, Dublin to Galway, the Escoriaha.
And we're talking thousands of years here, aren't we, Frances?
Oh,
you know,
gosh,
this
yeah.
place is exactly as it was.
Yes.
Thousands of years. Hard to imagine, hard to believe, isn't it?
And as you were saying earlier on, they've all gone now. I don't know where they've gone to, they've hidden. But it would have been very normal for you to see, for example, animals on the land and, you know, people going about their business. So here is very much, we keep it the same. So we're part of a really busy working farm, but we are still able to allow guests through it, completely outdoors, and visit all our fabulous monuments here.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Frances.
You're very welcome.
And now on your screen you can see a map, a plan of the general layout of Uisneach, taken from the Uisneach website. We have just come from the King's Palace. You can see that right at the bottom there, actually outside of the Uisneach Hill. So now we go through the gate here and on towards the fairy tree. And of course, no visit to any ancient ceremonial site would be complete without a stop at the fairy tree. What do I say about the fairy tree? The portal to the other world for the fairy folk, the Sidhe, the little folk as we call them, and they're here. This place is the place of the Tuatha, already mentioned. A supernatural legendary race skilled in arts, sciences, healing and energetic magic, who are said by many to be the creators of the great Irish monuments, including Newgrange. They fought and they overcame the previous Irish inhabitants, the Fair Bulg, at the first battle of Moytura. Subsequently, they then had to defeat the Fomorians at the second battle of Moytura, to usher in a peaceful reign until the arrival of the Celtic Milesians, the sons of Miled. It's often said that the early Christian storytellers could not permit a pagan race, endowed as they were with mysterious and divine power, to be the progenitors and forefathers of Christian Ireland. So they supplanted them with the Milesians, the sons of Miled, equally mythical, but in this case a wholly human invader. After much subsequent negotiations, the Tuatha were defeated at Taltu, and Amergin, the Milesian bard, divided the land in two, above ground for his people and below ground for the Tuatha, who morphed into the Shining Ones, the Sidhe, the fairy folk, the people of the fairy mounds who inhabit the cairn monuments and sacred sites, portals to the other world. Here they remained, as a powerful influence in the mythology of Ireland, living alongside mortal man and moving between the two worlds as they wished and saw fit. And here they held the wisdom of their ways. And the complete pantheon of Irish gods and goddesses originates from then. And the hawthorn tree here is very special, protecting the Dinamoy, the Sidhe, the fairy folk, and trees with rocks under them, like here. These were a place of assembly, where the Dinamoy, the good people, sat around and met at night. The Tuatha, retreating underground, promised they would come back again to this world when the veil is thin, on the eve of the festival of Samhain. And in 2022, this will be November the 7th, because remember, Samhain follows the astrological dates, not the Gregorian calendar. Let us move on now, past Eiru and Lugh again, to the summit of the mound, to the monument known as St Patrick's Bed. Although yet to be excavated, it's considered to be the remains of a Neolithic passage tomb, with an entrance facing west. Actually, a Neolithic chamber which predates St Patrick by thousands of years, dating back to before the pyramids, before Stonehenge. The first people with their knowledge of astronomy They could figure out the Earth's rotation by building these sites to mark the exact rise of the sun at any particular time of the year. And that's what we're seeing here. So if this site predates St. Patrick by thousands of years, why is it called St. Patrick's Bed? Good question. In the 5th century, St. Patrick came to Uisneach, trying to establish his church. But the O'Neill clan, that's the southern O'Neills, objected. And, as the story goes, St. Patrick cursed the stones and rendered them no good for heating, washing or building. In the 12th century then, and the coming of Christianity, in 1111, the actual date, Uisneach was the meeting place for an important synod. And that synod, dioceses were created that are still what we have today. But it's probably called St. Patrick's Bed most likely because of its use as a mass rock during penal times. However, St. Patrick did have a well on the hill named in his honour, and a number of small churches were founded around Uisneach too. Ground surveys have shown that the monument is surrounded by a circular enclosure, which may be the oldest man-made feature on this hill of Uisneach. And standing on this highest point here, you can easily get a feeling of being completely encircled by the whole of Ireland. And on a clear day, 20 counties are visible all around you. Dublin Mountains, the Wicklow Mountains, the Sugarloaf, Offaly, Carlow, Kilkenny, Slieve Blue Mountains, Slieve Naman and Tipperary, over to Nina, the Burren and Clare, Sligo, Cavan, Louth, Crewe, Armagh and Tara.
I can really feel the energy changing.
Oh, you can.
Wow.
And the temperature as well.
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel that. I felt that the last time I was here. It was a terrible day and the rain was pouring and the wind was blowing. And when we got down to this part, it was just lovely, really warm.
Wow.
It's an amazing place.
So sacred. So beautiful.
I think this is probably one of the most energetic places I've ever been. There's so many things here, you know, that are really unusual.
It's untouched.
Really. Yeah.
It's untouched, and it's untouched as well. The landowners, they farm sensitively, so literally the only thing that's on the land is cow poo. Which is natural. If you had pesticides and chemicals going down onto the land, you wouldn't see the thistle.
Yeah.
The thistle.
That would
You
be all
wouldn't see
killed
that.
off.
It'd be completely manicured. And it's a space where a cow could eat. I know it's only a small space, but it's a space where a cow could eat. But they don't. They leave it as is, and yeah, it's great. You can work side by side.
Well, that's the way it should be. That's the old way.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the
We're
way it
coming
should be.
down now to the south side of the hill. Okay, so we're just coming down now onto the south side of the hill.
There is a dramatic difference from up at St. Patrick's Bed there and here. There really is, in energetic terms.
Well, it'll get stronger and stronger as we move closer to the very centre of Ireland.
Yeah. Ireland's navel.
Ireland's navel. So tradition would have it that we will stop you at the top of the hill here, and we'll invite you down.
Right.
But the girls must go first.
Right.
Women must go first.
Of course.
And you can see it just there coming out over the...
I remember at this point, the first time I was up here, it just amazed me.
There's a draw.
Sitting here.
There's a natural... Now, I know we're on an incline, but there is a natural draw to this space.
Definitely.
And no matter where you are, be it coming from a field over there or over there, you're just drawn to here. So, I'm going to say you're going to hang back now.
Now at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
And we might let you down.
Okay.
Might.
Well, I live in hope. Should we die in despair?
And now we go towards the Catstone. On the southwest side of the hill is a large, oddly shaped limestone rock inside a circular enclosure. It's almost 6 metres, 20 feet tall, and thought to weigh over 30 tonnes. In Irish, it's called the Alnamuran, meaning Stone of the Divisions, as it's said to mark the exact centre of Ireland and the meeting point of the ancient 5 provinces: Ulster, Munster, Leinster, Connaught and Meath. Meath, the middle province. The stone itself is a limestone erratic, deposited here at the end of the last ice age. It denotes a ceremonial site of some sort, surrounded by a pond or ring barrow, a type of monument associated with Bronze or Iron Age burial traditions, about 2400 BC to 400 AD. The ring barrow, that's a man-made rise made by the Druids, is over 5,000 years old. And the goddess Eiru herself is said to rest beneath the Catstone. The Catstone and around it is a beautiful space. The divine feminine. Positive energy, calming, comforting, giving. And when you come here, you need to turn off, to ground yourself. You need to be present, to just breathe in the landscape around you. This Catstone here on Uisneach is said to be the very centre point of Ireland, the navel of Ireland, the umbilicus hibernia, the umbilical cord of Ireland, the resting place of Eiru, Mother Earth. James Joyce referred to it as the Umphala stone, like Delphi in Greece. Umphala stones worldwide representing a navel, a centre point. It has also been referred to as the centre of the world and even the centre of the entire universe. And a word now about health and safety. Yes, health and safety was adhered to very much in ancient times, not just in modern times. And a clairvoyant on a recent visit to Uisneach has described how an ancient form of health and safety was observed at Uisneach. St Bridget's Well is located about 1.5 miles away at the foothill of Uisneach. And it was here at Bridget's Well where everyone who was visiting Uisneach was stopped, their water taken from them for fear it was polluted, thrown away, and their water vessels refilled from the water at Bridget's Well. And their feet and hands were also cleansed. Then they would have come to the south-facing side of the hill. They would have gone to the ring fort here below the Catstone, the Stone of Divisions, where they would have been searched and any weapons confiscated and kept until they were returning, as no weapons were allowed on the hill. Then they would have made their way up the hill to the summit, past the Catstone. And the same process applied to those entering the King's Palace from the ancient road, which we looked at before. The nobles bearing gifts for the king, or others of importance, would have had their weapons taken from them at the end of the roadway, as well as everything they were carrying, and just left with the clothes they were wearing. The king's men would then walk behind them carrying their belongings, and once everything was checked and the king approved, all would be returned. Because remember, as I explained before, the kingship was always bitterly fought and contested, and enemies were always lurking, waiting for any chance to kill the king and seize power. And all our ancient sites, Uisneach here included, they all need to be protected and guarded, because they are not just mythology, they are our very history. They tell our story. And once you enter this sacred place, Uisneach here, you know you're in a different world, on a different energy, vibration, frequency level. A different time zone. You sense yourself stepping back in time, back to the time of our ancient ancestors. A time when nature and the natural cycle of the seasons determined and dictated daily life. A time when the pure God essence was acknowledged in every living thing. A time when the spirits of all living things in the earth and on the earth all around us in nature, and that governed the cycle of the year, these were honoured and revered. Indigenous people from all over the world have come here to Uisneach down through the ages, and still they come. And why? Because we have a common origin. They too have had their sacred sites taken from them, and they too have shared our beliefs in their deep belief in nature and the spirit of every living thing. They had their own gods of nature, as we have. They worked with the earth, understanding the very nature of their surroundings. They respected the earth and the cycle of the changing seasons, personifying their spirits of nature as their gods. Their mythology and ancient ways are so similar to our own here in Ireland. We are all connected in ancient times, in our adherence to the natural cycle of all life and our belief in the spirits of nature. And what happened to all of that? The coming of Christianity. That's what happened. Christianity came to Ireland. Christianity took over all these ancient ceremonial sites, castigated our ancient ancestors as pagans, and proceeded to build their own Christian churches on the same sites. And why? Because they knew those ancient ceremonial sites were built on the natural ley lines, the natural energy lines of the earth. It's as simple as that. And in the process, they adopted our ancient festivals and gods as their own, bringing the likes of ancient Ireland's goddess of fertility, Bridget, very firmly into the Christian fold by renaming her Saint Bridget and keeping her feast day on the 1st of February, the very same date as the ancient festival Imbolc, which for our ancestors marked the natural time of the coming of spring. So you see what has happened here. And the difference between the so-called pagans and this new religion, Christianity. The ancient people saw God in every living thing. God was everywhere, and they honoured and revered all forms of life, personifying it all by giving them names. On the other hand, this new religion, Christianity, taught there was only one God, a male figure, austere, remote, punishing, demanding, and he was to be found in church and accessed only through the priests and clergy. Christianity brought duality, division and separation. God up there in the clouds, remote and separate from us down here. Christianity brought fear, whereas the ancient peoples whom they displaced had lived in peace and harmony with Mother Earth. Gone were the names such as Grania, Danu, Macha, Anya, but not gone for good. Because today the festivals we celebrate with such enthusiasm and the pilgrimages we undertake to all these various mountains, stones, caves, trees or lakes, they are all more to do with our ancient ancestors than with Christianity. Christianity merely adopted them and made them into their own. And so, when you walk here upon this land of Uisneach, there is a feeling of coming home, of reconnecting with the important things of life, of reconnecting with your very soul. Our connection to the natural world, our relationship with Mother Earth, Mother Nature, which gave our ancestors stability and a sense of security, all that has disappeared down through the ages with the encroachment of the cement and mortar of urban development, the growth of industrial nations, the development of machinery on the land. Even farmers do not actually touch Mother Earth anymore. All of this separation from Mother Earth and the natural cycles of nature has led to a sense of disengagement, a disharmony, an estrangement. But now, thankfully, there's a growing desire to rekindle what our ancient ancestors had and to restore our identity with our land. This hill of Uisneach has featured nearly every significant Irish event, religious, cultural or political. The story of Uisneach here is indeed the story of Ireland. From our ancient ancestors, the medieval high kings, from the saints and scholars of early Christianity, to those who fought for freedom and the political leaders of the modern era. These have all left their mark here on this hill of Uisneach. And of course we cannot end without mentioning the Beltana fire. A special time here in the hill of Uisneach is Beltana in the month of May. The lighting of the Beltana fire is celebrated here on the hill of Uisneach and is one of Ireland's oldest traditions. In ancient times, a great assembly would gather here on this hill to witness the fire being lit by the High King of Ireland. The Beltana fire traditionally seen as marking the arrival of summer in Ireland and a symbol of the rebirth and rejuvenation of the land after the long winter months. One of the most enduring legends of Uisneach is that it was the location for the first great fire to be lit in Ireland. To usher in the first dawn of summer in May, the Uisneach hearth burned biggest and brightest of all, visible to over a quarter of Ireland. Fires were extinguished in every Irish home and fireplace in the country, in anticipation of a new flame from Uisneach's Beltana fire. Well, here we are at the end of the tour, back again to where we started with Eiru. And I hope that you have enjoyed that short tour and that you have learned a lot more about the mythology and the legends and the history of this sacred place. And now to end, I'm going to read you a poem about Uisneach, written by Kiri Murray, who's known as the Bard of Tara. Uisneach. Upon the hill of Uisneach, I sit and write this poem about Eiru, our goddess, who called this place her home. It's a hill of great power, imagination too, and fear. And the good god Dagda kept his solar horses here. It's now a place of pilgrimage. It has the goddess's sacred bones. And the sacred ring of Stonehenge is said to have its stones. It's called the Hill of Balor and mentioned in Finnegan's Wake. And Lu, the great harvest god, was drowned here in a lake. They lit Beltana fires here and had buildings thatched with reed. And Brian Boru once came here to claim the sovereignty of Meath. Eiru's grave is now marked by a rock called the Cat Stone. And a synod of bishops met here once to make this whole country their own. Giant hailstones fell in 538 and warriors fled from there, and ancient laws were passed here at the annual Lunasa Fair. It's a hill of great power, celebration too, and greed, and was once a kingdom of its own, the fifth province called Meath. And thank you to Kiri Murray for that poem on Uisneach. Sums up a lot of what we saw and heard today. And now, to finally finish off, we're just going to send you out, Declan and myself here, we're going to send you out the energy from Uisneach, the healing energy that is under this ground, on this ground and above this ground. Because remember, we're in a very, very strong energy line here, energy ley line of the earth. And we're at the very centre, the very navel of Ireland. So I invite you just to close your eyes, sit comfortably and just receive the energy as we send it out to you. Listen to the drum and the drum will take you into a higher meditation state as we send the energy out to you. is. We thank you for joining us. We hope you have enjoyed this tour. And until we meet again, from my heart to yours, namaste.
Namaste.